And so what I did to actually help me get over that was to lump all of my variable categories like that are like, fun things, all into one guilt-free category. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Hi, my name is Brooke, and on this channel, we like to talk about personal finances, lifestyle stuff, and life in your 20s. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please make sure to subscribe. I would love to have you over here. In this video, we are going to do a 6th-month check-in because it is already July. That's crazy. We are already halfway through the year. So we are going to go over how we have done in terms of how much we've made in income, what we've spent, and our different goals that we have: investing, saving, and paying off debt. So to get started, we are going to go over some of the numbers, and I actually have them written down in my little field notes here because we've got some numbers to go over, and I wanted to make sure that I had them correct for you all, and I will also put them up on the screen. But this is going to go over how much money we've made and how much money we have spent in the past 6 months. Now, I will preface this by saying I'm just a personal finance nerd. I care about these numbers because I care about financial transparency. And so these numbers are just reflective of my life and my lifestyle. And I am married, so my husband and I combine our finances. So this includes everything that we make together as a couple and what we spend together. So with those caveats out of the way, let's go over the numbers. Firstly, let's look at our income. Now, this is going to be our income after taxes, after our 401k contributions, and after our giving contributions. So all of that has been taken out of this number here. And this does include all of the money that we made from any bonus money, like our interest that we make in our high yield savings account, anything that we've made through side hustles, those kinds of things. So over the past 6 months, from January to June of this year, we have made a total of $64,672.62. Now that number is kind of crazy to me. Like, I never thought that I would be at this level of making this much money in only 6 months. When I first started working right after I graduated college in 2019. My first job that I took, I made $50K a year. So this is even more than what I made in 1 year working at that former job. So I am really happy with how things have gone in terms of my income. My income has gone up substantially. Also, getting married to someone who has a good job is also part of this, but it's just like such a blessing to me that I'm able to make this much money and be able to give back to my community and live the life that I want, and hopefully inspire you all to do the same. Now, let's talk about where that money has gone. A lot of our money does go to saving, investing, and paying off debt. So if you watched my other videos, you'll know that a lot of this money we don't actually spend in a way that you would think about spending. A lot of it goes into future goals and paying off debt. Well, we're going to go over those numbers in just a little bit. First, let's go over actual spending. So this is going to look at our bills. So this is our fixed bills category each month. So this includes our mortgage, our utilities, things of that nature. And those come to $8,465.75. That is really good. That means we're on track to spend less than $20,000 this year on bills. That means we can put a lot of money towards our goals. Now, let's look at our expenses. So these are our variable expenses, all the expenses that we know we're going to mostly spend throughout the month, but they're going to change month to month. So this number includes our groceries, gas, our subscriptions, our gym memberships, that kind of stuff. So our variable expenses over the past 6 months have been $5,924.48. So I'm actually really happy with that. That means that we haven't really inflated our lifestyle too much when it comes to, our everyday goods. Now let's talk about our guilt-free spending. So I am a fan of Ramit Sethi. I've talked about him before on this channel. And if you like personal finances, I would definitely check out his stuff because I am really a big fan of his. I like his philosophy on money, where money is a tool in order to live your rich life. And so one thing that he talks about is having guilt-free spending. And so I used to break up my guilt-free spending categories into clothes and eating out and fun and stuff like that, like entertainment and things. And when I did that, I felt so burdened because I'd be like, oh my gosh, we already used our eating out budget and now we can't eat out, even though it's like only the 15th of the month. And I would be like, I can't eat out anymore because I used that budget up. And so what I did to actually help me get over that was to lump all of my variable categories like that are like, fun things, all into one guilt-free category, because then, if I eat out more, then I'm like buying clothes or buying entertainment or some things like that. Like that means that's okay. Like I can buy $500 worth of food if I'm just only paying $100 towards everything else. Like to me, it made it so much easier for me, like psychologically, to look at it that way than to be very minute with every category. And so that's just something, like, if you feel like budgeting is overwhelming and you think, oh my gosh, like I don't have any money at the end of the day to do the things that I want to do, like having like just like a guilt-free spending category that's like kind of all lumped together really helped me to get over that fear of spending too much on eating out or whatever you like to spend money on. My husband and I each have personal spending each month, and this is because if he wants to like buy video games, he can buy video games, and if I want to buy makeup, I can buy makeup, and we don't have to worry about stepping on each other's toes and like being all like, oh hey babe, can I like buy this? Like we just go ahead and use our personal spending money to do that, and we don't have to ask questions. And it's just a nice way to feel like we each have individual control over money. We do make roughly around the same amount of money. So this guilt-free spending money that we have that's individual is equitable. So we both get the same allotment each month. And sometimes we go over that, and that's okay. If you're doing finances with someone and you combine your finances, maybe having a personal spending category for each person to have their own guilt-free spending outside of the bucketed guilt-free spending for the household is a good system, because it gives you that flexibility to buy what you want and not feel guilty about taking that money away from your partner. But in terms of our guilt-free spending over the past 6 months, this number is actually higher than our variable expenses, is $7,930.93. That is crazy. I did not realize that we spend so much on guilt-free stuff until I looked at this number. And I don't feel bad about that number. Like, I feel like when I was younger, I would feel really bad about, oh my gosh, I'm spending so much money on guilt-free stuff. And it's like, the thing is, I'm still hitting all of my other goals that I want. And so having this money be guilt-free and get to spend it on whatever I want, to me, that offers me a freedom of choice and flexibility and just feeling a lot more secure in what I have. And finally, I'm going to talk about spending money out of our sinking funds. So the way that my sinking funds work is that each month I put aside money into different sinking funds that are not long-term savings, they're short-term savings. So saving for vacation, saving for annual sub fees, saving for gifts and things like that. That's all of my short-term sinking funds. And whenever we spend out of those categories throughout the month, instead of having to cash flow it throughout the month, which means having to pay for it within that month with the income that we have from that month, we're using that sinking fund money. And I have a video all about how to set up sinking funds, so definitely check that out. I will link it in the description below, but it goes over the value of sinking funds and how to make them work for you. But when I spend out of those categories from those sinking funds, I don't have to feel guilty about spending that money, because I'm not overspending my income, because I've already set aside this money from my paychecks in previous months. And now I'm just allotting it to whatever I need. So in terms of sinking funds, we use some of our sinking funds to buy a new couch this year. And we also bought a couple of gifts for people and also vacation and things like that. So, in terms of how much we spent from our sinking funds in the past 6 months, we spent $6,797.59. And all of that money was saved up ahead of time. So that's how sinking funds are really helpful to you, because they give you that flexibility to buy things that are not everyday purchases. You know, you're not always going to have a birthday every month that you need to plan for. But there's going to be some months where you have like 5 birthdays. At least that's how it works in my family. I don't know how it works in your family. Having that money set aside, so when we're ready for those times where we're going to have more giving gifts and things like that is just a freedom as well, because I don't have to worry about like, how can I find room in my budget to make this work? And that's why I think you should set sinking funds up if you can. But those were all of our numbers for the past 6 months in terms of how much we've made and how much we have spent. So now let's look at how our main goals are going for this year. All right, so now we are in my goals spreadsheet. We have 3 main buckets of goals that I am working towards. We have our investing goals, our debt goals, and our long-term savings goals. So our investing goals, 1 are to max out both of our Roth IRAs, and 2 to invest $10,000 into a joint after-tax brokerage account. So in the month of June, in my Roth IRA, we set aside $584. And in my husband's Roth IRA, we also set aside $584. And then in our joint investing account, we set aside $834. So if we look at our total investing over the past 6 months, we have invested $12,012. So we are actually slightly above target. We are 50.05% of the way. And that's just really exciting that we've been able to set aside that much money into our investments. And the reason why I'm focused on our Roth IRAs right now is because we'll probably eventually get to a point where we're making over the income limit for our Roth IRAs. So I'm trying to put in the max now when I can, and also when we're young, so that we can compound that until we reach retirement. All right, now let's talk about our goals for debt. The 2 main types of debts we have are student loan and a car loan. The student loans are all between like 3 to 5%. And the car loan is at 6%. So it's all pretty low debt. But I do have an ambitious goal of being debt-free by 30. So we're trying to pay it off at an accelerated pace. We're not trying to do the traditional 10-year payoff plan for my husband's student loans. We've already paid off a good amount of his student loans. We paid off about $25,000 of his student loans. So, this is just the leftover bit. And he started out with like over 50K. So I think we've done really well. So in June, for student loan number 1, we set aside $65.12. For student loan number 2, which has the smallest balance and we'll probably pay that off by the end of this year, we set aside $86.78. And for student loan number 3, which is the biggest loan balance right now, we set aside $266.25. So we did, as you see, like in the beginning of the year, we did put a lot more towards student loan number 2 because we were focusing on it to pay off. However, we moved that money around in order to bump up our emergency fund. Our emergency fund is currently sitting at around 3 months of living expenses, but we're trying to bump that up to 6 months of living expenses as soon as we can. So you'll see that reflected in the long-term savings goals. That's just why those numbers look different and why we're paying them off a little bit slower. And then finally, for my car, we put aside just the $269, which is the minimum payment for the month. And we are going to hopefully pay that off by the end of this year as well. We have less than $5,000 on it, so I think that that's definitely doable. We've put aside $7,776.55 to debt. Now, obviously some of that we lost to interest, but I'm really happy with that number. I think that, with all of the different goals that we're working towards, like even though we're behind on this, I think that we can catch up by the end of the year. Once we get to our emergency fund goal, we'll be able to really catch up in the end of the year. And finally, let's look at our long-term savings goals. So like I mentioned, our emergency fund, we are trying to shore that up and get it to 6 months as soon as possible. So in order to do that, in June, we set aside $1,535. Now, originally, I had this goal set to only $4,000 because I was only originally going to get our emergency fund up to $15,000, but with us changing that, now we're at 125% of goal, so we've definitely reached that $4,000. But we'll continue putting towards this until we reach the 6-month mark. For our health and wellness fund, I've talked about this in so many other videos, but we have a high deductible healthcare plan. Both of us do. That means we can set money aside into an HSA, but it also means that we have a very high deductible. So we're setting aside money in order to reach our deductibles. And so together our deductibles are about $6,000 out of pocket. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to get to that number. And so in June, we set aside $300 to this fund. And so hopefully by the end of the year, we will be able to get to our deductible number. And then whenever we spend out of it, we'll just fill it back up. And finally, our house fund. So with this one, I had the ambitious goal of setting aside $12,000 because we want to move in the next 2 to 3 years. And after the sale of the house that we're currently living in and the profits we can make off of that, and what our goal is for like how much money we want to spend on our next house, this money is really going to be going towards any extra closing costs, moving funds, all that kind of stuff, so that we can pay for all of that, not having to spend our emergency fund on all that. Additionally, it might go towards home improvement because we have a couple of bigger projects we want to complete. But right now, we are just putting aside money into that. And in June, we set aside $900 to this. So we're a little bit behind, and we're going to get even more behind on this goal because the reason why we were able to set aside so much extra money to the house fund was because I had a second job that I did for the first 5 months of the year, and I got paid out from that. So I'm not getting paid for that anymore. So this number is going to have to go down because we just don't have money in the budget to put all that in there. But I feel like right now where we're setting at in this, we're doing pretty good and we still have time to make this up. So if we look at all of that, in total, the amount of long-term savings we have set aside in the first 6 months is $12,525.41. And that is amazing. That means we have set aside over $2,000 a month. And we are 64% of the way to our goal. So we are well ahead of this goal. And I'm feeling really good about how money has been going for us this year. Now, I know these numbers seem really big, and I'm not making these videos about personal finance in order to brag about how much money we have and that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not trying to do that. I don't want to make people feel some sort of way about money. Money, in my eyes, is just a tool that you use in order to live the life that you want. And you can live a life that is good if you're making $50,000 a year, just as if you're making $200,000 a year. It doesn't matter the amount of money that you have. It matters about how you are putting that money to work in the ways that you want it to work. I just finished a book called The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I talk about reading a lot on this channel, but the book was really good because it was a story about this girl who, she was definitely like blue collar, lower middle class. And she married this guy who was like a super wealthy guy. Like his parents owned like a huge grocery store chain, and like he grew up with like excessive amounts of wealth. Like one of the biggest things that they talk about in this book is like how much money can you use to buy other people's love. And the main character, like the female main character, she was like, there's no amount of money in the world that can buy love, but like your family treats it that way because that's how it's always been. Like when you have like a $100 million inheritance that you're going to get from your trust if you meet certain stipulations. Like, there's always going to be some kind of complex you have about money. You don't need a $100 million inheritance in order to live a good life. And that's kind of what the female main character teaches the male main character throughout the book, is like showing him that this money is becoming a problem in his life because of the way that his other family members treat him and the way that they force him into doing things he doesn't want to do by holding that money over his head. It was a good reflection on like how we as a society like idolize money so much to a point where we are trading money for love and happiness and support. Because when we think about that big of a number, like, yeah, we can like buy anything we want with $100 million. You could live a very good life for the rest of your life and not have to worry about literally a single thing else. But if you don't have what the female main character was offering to the male main character, which is like someone in your corner, someone who supports you and loves you unconditionally, like that money means nothing. Like, it's just a number on a piece of paper. It's just something that you can trade to get other people to do things for you, but it's not ever going to get you what makes life worth living. And in my opinion, what makes life worth living is having an abundance of relationships that are positive, that are good for you, that you have people that you can turn to in times of distress, that you have a support system when life gets hard, because life is always going to get hard. I just really appreciate how the female main character was able to walk into the situation and not get sucked in to the money part of it, because she realized that her ideals and her morals were higher than money, and she was more focused on making sure that her dad was taken care of and making sure that she was living a life that she wanted to do. She's a painter, and she was like an up and coming like starving artist. That's just my thoughts on money and how things have been going this past 6 months, because I think sometimes I get lost in the minutiae of, oh my gosh, like how am I going to be able to pay for this? And I have that coming up and all these things. But when I like zoom out and see the bigger picture, and I see that, I mean, I've been able to save over $12,000 over this past 6 months, and my expenses have only been like a small percentage of my overall income. It just puts things into perspective, and it helps me to realize that the things that I am doing in my life are going to benefit me in the future. And so I hope that whatever you see out of this channel is seeing that money is a tool to enrich your life and to enrich the lives around you. Your worth is not tied to your bank account. And with personal finance, I want people to just live the authentic life that they want to live and use money as the means to get to that place, but also remembering what's more important in life. So if you got this far, I appreciate you all so much. I love every single one of you. Thank you so much for showing up for my videos. I really appreciate it. It's been such an amazing journey starting this YouTube channel and talking to you all each week. If you got this far, comment down below community, because I think that community is the most important part of someone's life. Having a community, having your village around you is what makes life worth living. I love you all so much. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, y'all.